Good morning. Good morning. Today's gospel reading is certainly one of, if not the shortest reading in our 2-year cycle. But I think it's also one of the more pertinent in terms of our society, in terms of our relationship with the Lord. We have a situation here where Jesus enters a home. Martha, it says that it's her home, so she was most likely a widow. He enters her home. Now, when she invited him into her home, she took upon it herself a duty of hospitality. And in that time and place, if you invited someone in, you had a responsibility to care for them, to ensure their safety, to feed them, to look after their needs. Now, that didn't necessarily mean that you had to prepare a feast or a banquet or anything, but you had to make sure that they were fed and that their needs were met. And so she takes on this duty of hospitality. And it says that she has a sister Mary. And so in that time and place, you would assume that the sister would help, right? Just as we would today in many respects. You would expect your family or whatever to help if you had an event that was going on. But it says that when Jesus comes in and he begins to teach, that Mary sits at his feet. Now, this is a phrase that's used in different places in Scripture, and it may literally mean that she sat at his feet, or it's a term that means that she listened, she desired to learn from him. Either way, it's irrelevant. The point is that she sat in there to learn from him. Now, right off the bat, this would have been a major break from the norm. Okay, this is not something that women did at that time. This was the place of men to be disciples of the rabbi, to sit, to listen, to want to be educated in this way. So this was a break from the social norm. The social norm was Martha and Mary are providing hospitality, and Jesus and his disciples would have been sitting around talking about whatever it is that he's teaching them. So it's a strange situation. And Martha recognizes it, all right? We see it very clearly. Martha goes to Jesus, and she says to him, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself?" Does that sound familiar? It certainly sounds familiar at my house. Yes. And like kids, Martha doesn't even wait for the answer, right? If you notice, she doesn't wait for Jesus' answer. She says, "Well, then tell her to help me." Right? What she's really saying is, I know this makes you as frustrated as it does me, so why don't you tell her? Further, she's probably getting a little irritated with Jesus, right? Why are you letting her sit here like this? Not only am I doing all the work, but this is a little bit inappropriate. What's going on here? She's frustrated. She doesn't understand. See, from Martha's standpoint, she's doing what she is supposed to be doing. She's doing the right thing. Everything in her life up to this point had told her that she is doing what she's supposed to be doing, and that Mary is not. And so she lashes out. And Jesus responds to her. He says, "Martha, Martha." Now, if you're ever fortunate enough in this life to encounter Jesus, if he uses your name twice, that's not a good sign. Usually nothing good comes out of this. It's like a parent using your full name. No, at our house, Laura does that. It's funny, side note, but Cody, Laura said, "Cody, Catherine," and when Cody was like 2 years old, whenever I was doing something she didn't like, she'd say, "Daddy, Catherine Shields." Her way of calling me me out. Anyway, we learned that stuff from earlier, but Jesus says, Martha, Martha. He says, you're worried and distracted by many things. Worried and distracted by many things. Now this word worried in the Greek is often translated as pulled in different directions. You're pulled in many different directions and distracted by many things. Now that probably sounds familiar to some of you. Perhaps all of you. Being worried. Being distracted. I think that's probably familiar territory for most of us. It certainly is for me. I know just between the service, between the 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock, I had people coming and talking to me about things and doing things. And I came in here this morning for the first 15 minutes of the service realizing that I wasn't ready to stand up here and talk to you all. I was distracted. I was worried. My mind, my heart was somewhere else. It's really easy to get worried, to get distracted. Jesus says to her, Martha, it's not that what you're doing is wrong. He says, but Mary's chosen the better of the two. And that won't be taken away from her. See, that's the thing that we have to remember here. Jesus isn't scolding Martha per se. What she was doing wasn't wrong. She wasn't breaking one of the commandments. She wasn't doing anything evil. She was trying to care for the people around her. In her mind, she was doing the right thing. But in reality, the Lord wasn't at the center of what she was doing. She was busy, but she wasn't focused on God. C.S. Lewis talks about, I put this book to you a lot, but in Screwtape's Letters, he talks about the devil and tempting us in things. And one of the things he says, one of the devil's favorite things to do is simply keep us busy. Just keep us busy. Doesn't matter with what. He says, just keep them busy. As long as they're not thinking about God, then it doesn't matter what they're doing. He says, even if what they're doing is good. He says, let them feed the homeless. Let them build houses. Let them do great things. He said, just don't let them think about God. Keep them busy. Being distracted is real easy to do. Now what Jesus is saying here is not that we should all just sit around all day, every day, and do nothing. That's not what this is about. What he's saying is in all things, Christ should be at the center of our lives. So in this particular case, Martha was frustrated and angry that Mary's attention was on Jesus, that her focus was on Jesus. Now, I don't know what kind of meal Martha was preparing. I don't know what all she was doing, etc., etc. But I suspect there was a way of going about what she was doing that would have been less involved, that would have required less input on her part, that would have required a lot less frustration. We've all had that experience, I suspect. You're going to have someone over or going to do something for someone, and instead of it being a 30-minute preparation and ordeal, it's a 3 or 4 hour, and by the time somebody gets there, everybody's frustrated, smiling through the frustration, etc. You know the feeling. He says, that's not what I want. That's not the better choice. It's easy to get distracted. And we have so many choices. There's no end to the choices. I hear a lot of people talk about, well, there's so many choices now with TV and computer and the internet and this and that and the other, but the reality is people have always had choices. I'm not saying there's more or less now, or etc., but people have always had a choice, whether to stay focused on God or not. This is not a new thing. This is simply part of being a human being in a broken world.
Amen.
We have to choose to stay focused. So how do we do that? What do we do? I believe first and foremost it begins with prayer. It begins with intentionality. Reminding ourselves, not just out of habit in the morning when we wake up or when we go to bed, but praying. Reminding ourselves, even throughout the day, Lord, maybe it's as simple as, Lord, I want to keep you at the center of my life. But that constant reminder that in whatever it is we're doing, God needs to come first. That can make a huge difference. Think about some of the things that get us worried and frustrated and distracted in our lives, many of which are relationships. Lots and lots of people come into my office to talk about essentially arguments that they're having with people, where they disagree. Two sides disagree over an issue. And one of the conversations that we usually end up having is, well, let me ask you this. What's more important here? Your relationship or this issue? And they'll usually sheepishly say, well, the relationship, of course. Well, it seems to have gotten lost here in the middle of this. If we keep Christ at the center, if we're always remembering that in our lives, then many of these encounters that we have, we can remember, oh yeah, loving this person, being in relationship with this person is more important than being right. Keeping Christ at the center of our lives, it's not easy. It takes intentionality, it takes work, it takes practice. Along with prayer, I think it takes study. And the reason that I think study is important is just the act of studying reminds us continually that we're focused on Christ, that that is our purpose. And it helps to broaden our understanding and our mind. Even if everything we read we don't completely understand or comprehend, it's still there. It's still working on our hearts and our minds, helping to focus our lives. You can't just simply come in here once a week and hear 10 minutes of a sermon or an hour of prayers or whatever and feel like that's good enough, that we're going to learn all we need to know in that little amount of time. Study is important. Whether you're doing it with a group on your own, it's important for keeping us focused. And last but not least, I think that accountability is really important. We have that with our AD groups that we started. What I mean by accountability is that you have someone in your life that you're checking in with. Someone that you're saying, hey, I'm really struggling here with my prayer life, or I'm getting way off center here. Somebody that you trust that can help reel you back in, can help keep you focused, that understands what your goals are, and can call you back when you stray. But above all else, it takes intentionality. You have to want to put Christ at the center of your life. Something we have to work at each and every day. It's far easier to get distracted. It's far easier to worry than to let go. It's far easier to worry than to trust. But Jesus says, I have something better for you. I have something better for you. And it's not always going to fit what the world around us says. Mary didn't fit the mold. But she made the right choice. Jesus will offer us something better if we stay focused on Him. Let us pray. Dear Lord, I give you thanks for the many blessings you bestow upon us. Pray that you would give us wisdom, discernment, to understand your will and to walk in your ways. Help us to keep you at the center of our hearts and our minds. Help us to have our lives focused on you. We might weed out the distractions and the worries, so we may find the peace that you intend for each of us. All this we ask in your Son's holy name.